we will collectively try to understand the concept of incidental advice, followed by what is suitability, and finally followed by how do you effectively create, communicate, and finally execute an incidental advice. But before we begin, and before we jump into those definitions and understanding, I would like to ask a question. Like me, have you all also been kind of puzzled with what incidental advice really means? What is the regulator trying to say when it says that a distributor can do an incidental advice, but not an investment advice? How do you really distinguish between the two? So incidental advice in the context of an MFD refers to the act of providing basic advice limited to mutual funds being recommended to the client based on distributors' assessment of suitability and the investor's risk profile. The keyword here are: first, it is limited to mutual fund being recommended. Second, it is based on the distributor's assessment of suitability. And third, it is based on investor's risk profile. The document also kind of clarifies that incidental advice does not include providing detailed financial planning, which is covered under the ambit of SEBI registered RIAs. Now let's understand what suitability is. Suitability, in the simplest of terms, means ensuring you are able to align the client's needs and expectations with suitable financial products. The term the regulator here they have used is to align financial objective, risk tolerance, and investment horizon of a client. But why do we need suitability in the first place? First and foremost, it is important for client satisfaction. Remember, suitability is the difference between an investor enjoying a smooth ride during an investment journey versus feeling that he is almost on a roller coaster during his investment journey. If you can ensure a smooth ride to your investor, you will win a client for lifetime. And second, obviously, is compliance. Because whether you look at SEBI's document or AMFI's document, you will see a lot of emphasis has been laid on the word suitability. And it requires both RIAs as well as MFDs to ensure suitability whenever they're recommending something to their client. Now, one important thing that I've kind of noticed by talking to different MFDs and RIAs is their view on compliance is more tilted towards saying that compliance is always designed to protect the investor, but it hampers the business growth. I think we are significantly missing the bigger picture here, because I strongly believe compliance is also designed to protect your business as you grow, and you should always keep this in mind. With this in mind, let's ensure how can we be compliant with suitability. It is actually not very complicated. All you need to know is to follow these 3 steps, and we'll walk through these 3 steps with the help of an example today. Suppose he fills up the questionnaire, and based on the assessment, he comes across as a client with a moderate risk appetite. So now we know his objectives, we know his investment horizon, we know his risk tolerance. Now your role as his financial guide is to basically align all of this with your understanding of mutual fund products to come up with a suitable portfolio for the client. And this is where a suitability document comes into picture. What is suitability document? Basically, through suitability document, we recommend you, and again, it also is a part of compliance to have such a document in place, where a document which can help you align the client's requirement to appropriate financial product. You have it as a documented process which you and everyone else in the organization can follow. What this document helps you achieve? One, it becomes a guiding North Star for any kind of decisions related to suitability. Second, we have already talked about investors getting biased based on market happenings, but it's also equally true that a lot of times distributors and advisors also get biased. But this document will help you overcome such biases, because your decisions will not be based on your current biases, but will be based on structured documents that you have created and put in place for your organization. And then when you add a lens of research that you have already learned in the last week to this suitability document, you can very easily pinpoint the right schemes that are suitable for that particular client and his portfolio to meet the specific requirements. Now, how do you implement a suitability document? There are various formats in place, but I would highly recommend you to leverage the suitability matrix which Network FP has designed. I find this particular document very simple, very clear, and easy to implement, and yet very insightful whenever you need to make any kind of decisions related to suitability. What is the suitability matrix? What Network FP has done here very cleverly is, on the left-hand side, they have put the risk profile of the client, and on the right-hand side, they have mapped the investment horizons. Now, based on your understanding of the product, the risk and its nature, you can align the different categories of product into each of these each part of this matrix. And this is where whenever whenever investment decision is to be made, you will go into the appropriate scheme, use your lens of research, and come at the appropriate scheme. If there are any exceptions that you need to take, ensure that you always properly document any kind of exceptions from a suitability metrics that you are following in your organization. Moving on next, what is incidental advice? So you have already done suitability, you have come down and narrowed down to the right scheme. Now it's your duty as an advisor to clearly communicate this to the client. And this is where incidental advice would come into picture. It's basically a 4-step process of creating an incidental advice document, sending it to the client, capturing the approval, and finally executing them. Moving on next, what is incidental advice? So you have already done suitability. So we have now created the entire advice. Our next step is the next logical step is now to send it to the client. Now, what are the official channels of communication we recommend for sending it to the client? I would say a big no to personal WhatsApp and oral communication. And by saying, when I say no to oral communication, I'm not saying don't do oral communication, but whatever you do, always follow it up with a formal record of email. Because remember, in the eyes of compliance, if you don't have a formal documentation which you can refer to and show as a proof, then for compliance, it's as good as you have not sent the advice or you have not done enough suitability when you started with that. We would recommend using a formal email as the best medium to communicate all these details to the client. And in case WhatsApp is required, please have in place a system or a CRM where WhatsApp is integrated that can help you easily document, retrieve details, and tag things so that everything is well organized. Some of the best practices around this would include like I said, always formally document things. Keep your channels of communication limited, maybe to 1 or 2. Don't open up too many channels of communication with the client, because you may see as a short-term convenience communicating over different channels, but as you grow, these multiple channels will become a hindrance to your growth, because you will have information scattered across different places. As far as possible, keep your records well organized. Again, sharing some best practices here. I have seen advisors who maintain Excel files of every recommendation that goes to the client. There are advisors or distributors who do it per client wise. So they maintain one single file, and every recommendation that goes to the client, they record it in that particular file of the client. There are also people who do it based on the financial year. So in a year, whatever recommendations are going out, they keep it recorded in a single Excel with basic details like on which date it was sent, what was the premise, why did we send this advice, what schemes were recommended, etc. All of this becomes very easy when at any point later you need to refer to these documents, be it for audit purposes or be it for some discussion with the client. And wherever possible, leverage technology to make your life easier. You can have some predefined templates that can help you create and fill details of your recommendation. It will help you deliver consistent output every time, because as you grow, you start hiring people, and different RMs will start interacting with their client. As an organization, you want to ensure that a very similar kind of communication goes to every client. A very defined technology in place will help you achieve such outcomes. It will save you time, and obviously will help you scale. Your execution can be a lot more robust and error-free if you use the right technology in place. And for compliance purpose and for record keeping purposes, technology can help you keep automated logs at every step in your incidental advice and suitability. Remember, technology is not a replacement for your process. Your first intention is to keep the right processes in place and then leverage technology to consistently deliver on your processes, but at a much faster and consistent basis.